The Galactic Combat Academy's Advanced Weapons Hall gleamed with technological marvels from 1,000 worlds. Plasma rifles hummed with contained fury, graviton disruptors bent the very fabric of space, and molecular destabilizers could unmake matter at the quantum level. Among the cadets stood Alice Chen, the only human in a class of 47 beings, clutching a long wooden case that looked absurdly out of place. Instructor Vexthor, a Krellian warrior whose species had conquered warfare millennia ago, stopped before her station. His four eyes narrowed at the primitive container. Cadet Chen, his translator rendered his clicking speech into flat, emotionless words. Today's exercise requires each student to demonstrate their species' contribution to modern combat doctrine. Surely you haven't brought what I think you've brought. Alice met his gaze steadily. Yes, instructor. This is my grandfather's composite recurve bow. The weapons hall erupted in chittering laughter. A Zephrani cadet, his translucent wings shimmering with amusement, spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. A bow, what's next, sharpened rocks? Perhaps a club made of bone? Vexthor raised one clawed hand for silence, though his mandibles twitched in what Alice had learned was the Krellian equivalent of a smirk. Very well, Cadet Chen. Please enlighten us as to how this relic represents humanity's martial prowess. Alice opened the case with deliberate care. Inside lay a masterpiece of human engineering. 65 inches of laminated wood, fiberglass, and carbon fiber. The riser gleamed with oil rubbed into zebra wood, and the limbs curved with mathematical precision. She assembled it with practiced movements, her fingers finding familiar grooves worn smooth by her grandfather's hands and then her own. This bow, Alice began, her voice carrying across the sudden silence, has a draw weight of 70 pounds, effective range of approximately 300 meters for an experienced archer. It's completely silent, requires no power source, generates no heat signature, and leaves no electronic trace. Fascinating, Vexthor said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. And how does this compare to, say, a standard plasma rifle with a range of 3 kilometers and the ability to punch through reinforced armor? Alice knocked an arrow, a modern carbon shaft tipped with a broadhead designed for maximum tissue damage. May I demonstrate, instructor? By all means. Vexthor gestured to the reinforced target range at the far end of the hall, where holographic opponents flickered to life. Han, a fellow human cadet and Alice's closest friend at the academy, watched from the observation area. Unlike the others, he wasn't laughing. He'd grown up in the same colony world as Alice, had seen her practice in the mountains where their families hunted together. He knew what was coming. Alice's breathing slowed. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory. The bow doesn't just launch arrows, Xiao Bao. It teaches patience, control, respect for the space between intention and action. She drew the string back to her anchor point, feeling the bow's energy compress into her muscles, her skeleton, her very being. The first holographic target, a Krellian shock trooper, materialized 200 meters downrange. The arrow flew. It covered the distance in 1.3 seconds, faster than most beings could track with their natural vision. The broadhead struck the holographic target's weak point, the gap between chest armor plates that every species thought they'd eliminated from their designs. The simulation registered a critical hit, and the target dissolved. Before the first murmur of surprise could spread, Alice had knocked, drawn, and released again. And again. And again. 6 arrows in 8 seconds, each finding a kill zone with surgical precision. Silent death delivered with nothing but human muscle, human engineering, and human determination. The weapons hall had gone completely quiet. Vexthor's mandibles had stopped twitching. Again, he commanded. Moving targets. Random trajectories. Combat stress simulation. The lights dimmed. Klaxons wailed. The temperature spiked to simulate battlefield conditions. Holographic enemies appeared and vanished in unpredictable patterns, moving at speeds designed to challenge even enhanced reflexes. Alice became something primal. Her modern combat training melted away, replaced by instincts carved into human DNA over hundreds of thousands of years. She didn't aim. She knew where the arrows would fly. Her grandfather's teachings merged with muscle memory older than civilization itself. 12 arrows, 12 targets, 0 misses. When the simulation ended, Alice lowered the bow and carefully unstrung it. Her hands were steady, her breathing calm. She looked at Vexthor and waited. The Krellian instructor approached slowly, his earlier arrogance gone. Explain, he said quietly, how you achieved a 98% accuracy rate under conditions that would challenge a targeting computer. Humans, Alice said, hunted with bows for over 60,000 years before we developed agriculture. We hunted animals faster than us, stronger than us, more naturally armed than us. We couldn't outrun them or outfight them, so we learned to be patient, to read movement, to predict behavior, to strike from a distance with tools we made with our own hands. She held up the bow. Every species in this galaxy developed ranged weapons after they achieved technological sophistication. You went from claws and teeth to plasma rifles in a single evolutionary leap. But humans? We spent millennia perfecting the art of killing at a distance with nothing but wood, string, and stone. By the time we reached the stars, that instinct was burned into our species' memory. Han stepped forward from the observation area, unable to contain his pride. Show them the last part, Alice. Alice smiled. From her case, she drew a different kind of arrow, one with a modified tip. This is a standard academy training room, correct? Environmental controls, holographic generators, sensor arrays everywhere? Vexthor's eyes widened slightly. Cadet Chen, those systems are... The arrow flew straight up. It struck a junction point in the ceiling where 3 sensor arrays met. Sparks showered down. The holographic systems flickered. For 5 seconds, the most advanced training facility in the galaxy went dark, disabled by a pointed stick and some feathers. When the backup systems engaged, every cadet was staring at Alice with new understanding. Humanity hadn't joined the Galactic Federation because they'd developed impressive technology. They'd been invited because they'd survived and thrived on a death world using nothing but ingenuity, determination, and weapons they'd crafted themselves. Vexthor clicked his mandibles together, a gesture of deep respect among his kind. Cadet Chen, your grandfather's bow has taught us something valuable today. Modern warfare relies on technology that can fail, be hacked, or run out of power. But a skilled warrior with a primitive weapon... He paused, searching for the right words. They rely only on themselves. Alice carefully returned the bow to its case. My grandfather used to say, advanced technology is wonderful, but never forget the tools that made us human in the first place. He hunted with this bow until the day he died. He left it to me with one instruction. Remember where we came from. As the class dispersed, Han walked alongside Alice. That was incredible. You barely even looked like you were aiming. I wasn't aiming, Alice admitted. At some point, the bow becomes an extension of your body. You don't think about trajectory or wind resistance. You just know. Think the instructor learned his lesson about primitive weapons? Alice glanced back at Vexthor, who was examining the disabled sensor array with newfound respect. I think the whole academy just learned that primitive doesn't mean ineffective. Humans didn't claw our way to the top of Earth's food chain by accident. We did it with tools, patience, and the willingness to practice the same motion 10,000 times until it became instinct. She patted the wooden case. Grandfather was right. Never forget where you came from, because sometimes the oldest solutions are still the best ones.